Let's follow it, and then we see what's going on. Yeah, let's go. We're all the same morning, so we're gonna five. So
there you go. Good evening. So we are live for the first of 1 hour, etc. With a few small technical problems sometimes, but we hope that there won't be many against it. That's not the supramental. What's the point? But it's going to be divided into 3 parts. First part, what is supramental? Second part, what is supramental awareness? And the third most interesting part will be the supramental. What is it for? And in this case, for all those who are connected in this video transmitted live on YouTube, that's what it's all about. Everyone talks about what supramental is. So Richard is the co-host of this vision. And then, for the moment, Sonia is invited. So, who prefers not to put his camera, it's a choice. And I remind you that in the description of the YouTube live, well, the first thing in the description of the live is the link to join the video conference. So, don't hesitate. If what we say caught my interest and you want to talk in the position, well, you click and you log directly into the live. There you go. So, Richard, I'll give you the floor. Oh, yeah. No. That's it. It's just that. No. Excuse me. It's to introduce the subject. I prepared 2 short videos and we're going to show you them. I'm going to put them in the video conference and you'll see the first video conference. It's an Italian volunteer from the BDN NTL broadcasting team who knows Sri Aurobindo very well and who will speak finally, who will read a little excerpt from what she read in the writings of Aurobindo. So let's go, because for the Rubino, she's the first person to talk about what overtime is. Let's listen. So,
it's a very particular experience. That is to say, that she had felt a descent. A supramental personality manifest in material forms.
Okay, so that was the first video I wanted to show you. And the second one, I'll show you a second video, which is from the second well-known person in the supramental world. In this case, he's called Bernard de Montreal. We'll have the opportunity to talk about it again. And there's this 1-minute excerpt from his video where he talked about supramental and supramental awareness. So let's listen to that.
It's the contact between thought procession and his die. Does not allow this contact to materialize because the ego lives constantly in fear. The relationship between to talk about it in raid up everywhere. It's not permanent at the beginning. It's normal every moment, and a path that is not his. That's when you have to have an attentive ear or not have arms and ask who speaks. There. So the supramental representation is
the contact of the presentation. So there you go. It was to present the subject a little, to put us at the bottom. So two videos of and two personalities who marked the supramental. So Aurobindo and Bernard Montreal. So there you have it. Now, Richard, I'll give you the floor. Well, Sonia had intervened.
Hello, Sonia. That's good. Well, Richard, listen, she's the co-host. I'll let you work on the rest. Go ahead. I'll give you the floor. So, Sonia, you didn't hear the passage, so no, the passages he put in.
I hear voices overdue. Then I'm hearing Bernard's passage to Montreal. There you go. Okay. Well, so just a little comment on the first video is that, in fact, in the first video, it's not Bingo, but it's his mother's partner who says that in 1969, she felt something that went down. It was her words, and who was the supramacular personality. So there you go. That was the excerpt, the first excerpt. So does that inspire us to talk about the supramental? What is supramental?
So that's why I was asking if she had heard it, because I can't bounce back on videos. No, later. And I thought you were gonna engage first too. Okay. Well, Max, welcome. Hi, Matt. Hi, Matt. Your subway is upper. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Hello. You're gonna intervene right now? Not at all. I just connected right now. There. I didn't see the time pass with the time change. The problem is that I'm on a delay on everything there. I'm gonna try to talk a little bit about Sonia, maybe. So she's late. It's weird because suddenly I thought she was listening to YouTube, but I think you don't listen to YouTube, Sonia. Do it quickly. No, there's no YouTube there. I'm just okay. Well, look, maybe too outgoing coming back. So I'm gonna try Jean-Claude, because I've already forgotten what happened. But in fact, what I wanted to talk about is that, well, the supramental, we haven't yet, well, we revolve around the pole, so we haven't yet defined what it was. And, well, the first point is that in 1969, well, it manifested itself in quotes.
Okay, it demonstrated while going down. So it's something that's what is Sony. So that's all the connection noises and connections. What am I going to say? Yeah, well, yeah, what is it? Is it true that it's like it's old and certainly, how do you say, very, very up to date for a lot of people? Maybe it's true that now we all have an approach that's quite different. So it's true that these things that come down, as the first person says, what you had put first. Well, for me, I didn't have all that. For me, it was through a connection, through a person who talks to me about all that. And then from there, for me, it opened. I saw myself as a dam. These fruits that there are more and more, and then all of a sudden, hop, it opens up. That's how I saw it. So it's true that I didn't feel going down or anything like that. And from there, in fact, it's simply through the exchange with others, with other people, connected or not. Well, that's the unconscious term that it happened like that for me. So it's true that they look like things. So just my time old with myself of things that look like something a little extraordinary. It's true that it didn't happen to me, so that happened in a different way. So it's true that I have nothing to say about them, how they got it, since in fact everyone has their own vintage. I like to say. So after that, do I focus on the three questions? Someone else?
tell me what I do. No, it's that, well, maybe Max, if you ever want to intervene, you cut off your mic. Finally, you activate your mic and you intervene, right? It's very mic, absolutely. So I may have missed the beginning with, I heard that there were 3 questions. That's it. No, but it's not important. In fact, we're on the part, the supramental is that, if you want to talk to us about this subject, according to your idea, what is your idea? What is your idea? You don't have your headphones. Yeah, to see if you can put that. The sound is not good. That's it. No, but there's an echo. If there are other people who might join, put headphones so that we don't have the feedback. We hear there.
I'm just going to do one. Well, in the meantime, I can still say that, well, I started reading a book that may put in the description of the lives, because it's a divine life, and Scurodo, it's a
Wait, excuse me, is the Magazine Club turning off its microphone? So where the headphones, I don't know, but we hear everything in duplicate. Yeah. Will it do it again? I don't know, we'll see it. It's a surprise. So in this book of more than 1,000 pages, and I'm at 400, which is not easy to read, it's metaphysical. And well,
it takes 200 pages. It takes the first 200 pages to then have the idea of what supramental is, and there I would finally be. I don't feel like saying, yeah, it's supramental, it's this, it's that, but that's what we is it an energy? The supramental energy, is it a consciousness? Is it a force? It's let's say it's a bit all that maybe. And what I can say for the moment, for me, I would have to re-release Aurobindo, because, and that's not what it is. I can allow myself to resell. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Well, since I have certainly the videos you have, that doesn't speak to me at all. It's not something that makes me vibrate, let's say. It can speak to a lot of people, but I didn't go through these ramifications at all. So by going into triathlon, that's way too long. But on the other hand, you could answer a question, which is, what is supramantic, which instinctively comes to me. For me, I see it as a tool that allows many on the different bodies, the different fields that one can have. It can allow, let's say, to put glasses on the consciousness, to put glasses on the mind, to put glasses on the emotional, all these things that are specific to us and that are internal. So we would go for a meeting with these different parts of the internal being, and which indeed leads after a certain number of years, which leads to having a modification of behavior towards the individual, the events, the things that happen to us. So I will see that as a tool, a new tool in its toolbox, which would allow us to have a toolbox that we more much clearer. Okay, I'll see it that way. That's why when we talk about concepts and we talk less about mass, for me, there's something that blocks me with that. It doesn't necessarily come from us. These are things that have been already instituted, and because it's instituted, it could bring
to a form of ramification to belief, to a certain belief of something that has been developed by others, let's say. So that's how I see supramental. In any case, how it manifested itself throughout the years at home.
So I can engage Jean-Claude too. Finally now, it's easy when maybe that means that, in fact, a direct attack on the third subject, that is to say, yes, what is the point of the mental subject? I mean, managing concepts. Well, maybe it's not very useful, but saying, hey, in my life, that's what it brings me. In fact, that's the heart of the show. So let's go. But I think everything will recycle. In addition, it's going to be in disorder, but everything will be reviewed, because it's true that it's not easy with a pattern. Yes, but then this afternoon, I inevitably, as I had done tonight in my head, saw this rule that even I had never described as supramental, even if we use the term a lot, especially for our thumbnails. But after we agreed at one point, we removed more and more terms. We make fewer and fewer references to older things, let's say. But what I have is a definition that I have now. Tomorrow, maybe it will have changed. But I told myself with the story of Bernard and everything, and that in fact, it's a whole pact that to actually pass on to the human terms, and that's it. With a Sonia little wink at the thing you passed me indicates that we know the words, they have their vibrations, they are possibly old, and it's true that with not even the term awareness, it wasn't marked in the dictionary. Maybe it's there now, but 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when it started a bit, I know not. And I say, okay, look, this word doesn't exist. And so from there, I understood that there were new words. And so with all this pact, so in the team of instructions from Bernard, because I haven't really listened to any others, there weren't others that made me vibrate, especially. So let's say that I've known the source better. And in fact, when the mob things we don't know, things where we say to ourselves, well, I don't know, I'll see that later, something with me, it brought a whole life impact of vocabulary that made me move on to another type of vibration. And that's how I understand when people say, yeah, we do supramental and all that, it just allows me to tell myself we're in that vibration zone. And then when it blows up a lot of spatialized, let's say, it can satellite us. And in fact, once we know what we're talking about, so with people who are in the same vibration, so afterwards we create at least less and less in the sense that we live a normal life. Can still see that from other angles, but suddenly that's how it is. Finally, if I had to prove a kind of definition, what is it? It's a vocabulary pack that therefore these words have started with a vibration that changed mine, and in fact places us elsewhere with another angle of view on what we are. And so I think it goes back a little to what Sonia was saying. These are new glasses. Recycle a bit the term she said, and then we'll see what it's for and all that. But the definition is how I'll see it. Yeah.
So yes. So now, in fact, yeah, me, it's I have another approach, which is to say, okay, well, a human being who asks himself questions about life. Well, the first the first series of answers that can be offered to it is religion. That is to say, well, there you go. Why finally, what do we do or go? Well, there you go. It's because often religion, well, it's written in such and such a place. And then, well, when we arrive at some borderline of this religion, we say, well, why that? And when your responds, but the voices of God are penetrable, well, now it doesn't satisfy us. So the second is series of question and answer that we could turn to so far. It was spirituality. So spirituality is the step above. Well, if we say there's a bottom and a top, and spirituality is a portal of new answers to the questions we could ask ourselves. And also, so then the limits, well, there's Jean who just connected. Hello, Jean-Luc. It's, but you speak afterwards. And so for me, spirituality is the same. There are new limits that are a little further than that of religion, but there are new limits. And the supramental, well, it's a third series of question and answer with numbers of new concepts that go a little further than spirituality. That is to say that for me, the disappointed people of religion, and they went towards spirituality, but the disappointed people of spirituality, well, they can go to the supramental, which has new answers. And indeed, both for the questions that we can ask ourselves about life, and both for the way of living it, of having advice, the BAA of, well, and why do we always have a series of negative events that happen to us? Well, Supramental. So for we say supramental, sometimes it's a shortcut launching supramental, launching that rights. Well, there aren't too many rights somewhere, but supramental, well, it starts to provide new answers to these questions that we ask ourselves. And so these new answers, well, that's what you have. Remember, there are new glasses, but so for me, there is, on the one hand, these glasses that make us become aware of life. What am I doing here? What is happening? Where am I going? How can I better pass the elements of my life? But after, when we go all the way, well, it's we take a much more active share of our life. That is to say that we tell you, well, let's say in those who have talked about parliamentary games so far, they say, well, listen, in fact, you can be, but you can become creative in your life. That is to say that the life you experienced before, and now you are going to direct it. And here is how it is done. So for me, that's what the supramental brought me. That is to say, for me, what is the supramental for? That's it. So, well, I'll stop on the question, Jean-Luc, if you want to participate. But there was also Matt. Matt, you activate your microphone and your camera when you want. So Jean-Luc, if you want to participate, go ahead. Hello, everyone. Julianne participated, but for now, nothing is coming to me, so he doesn't want to be very
no. And who is or something, I would say to you at 20, I'll listen to you. Okay, we only have 1 hour. Yeah, no. Well, I'm not 19. It's not me who can direct something in, you know what I mean? No, but I have the impression that Matt reactivated his camera, so maybe ignition the...
Welcome. We welcomed the baby a few days ago, so it's not necessarily always super easy, and it's not organized yet, but well, that's it. That's what's for the side. So hello again to everyone, which I didn't say earlier. Well, I can say that already it seems difficult to me to approach supramental like a concept, because for me it's something dynamic. It's not something spun out, especially since it marks its act when we start talking about supramental paradigm. So it seems difficult to me to approach this paradigm with the same vocabulary and the same intention of what we approached before. So there is, therefore, just mentally, it's a point. It's a coordinate in particular where it happens, and then it opens up something new. After on the aspect, on the personal aspect, what I can also say is that my experience is that there is this energy where there is nobody. There is, I can hardly say that there is a method of supramental where that observes in my already for myself and in my close circle. What I can say is that there are not two types of evolution like that. There are different dynamics. There you go. If I should talk about the supramental, I would say it's a dynamic, it's a movement. It's a movement inside a new humanity, a new, well, not like it's not that important, but it's a movement. For me, that's what supernatural is. That's it. Quickly, what I have of, and on the other hand, in your life, you can give us examples of
things that have changed in your life, finally. That is to say that it is more in what area than supramental. In my life, I couldn't say that there are really things that have changed in my life. On the other hand, what is certain is the leverage that changes in my life. It's my way of perceiving things and experiencing things. It's the way I receive them, the way I welcome them, and the way I sign up inside. That's why I can't do less, or I sign up inside these dynamics. That's what has changed, both in terms of experience, apprehension, and perspective. That is to say that one thing that for the time being, in relation to that, really has changed, and then moreover, it's once again it's evolving because it moves all the time. But one thing that is quite significant, I would say, is the persistence of time. For example, the perception of time, that is to say the fact that things are experienced, can be experienced, but me, I come from a very Christian background. I have a very Christian education, we had Protestants and so on, very strong, very, very strong. And within this education, there is death, which is very present, which marks a stop. And the question is fundamental. It's what do we have after death? And what will become after death will depend on the actions that we will have manifested in our lives at an absolutely changing point compared to this perspective. It is the fact that, for example, over time, this notion of death disappeared. For example, so that has immediate consequences on the present, because the present, from the moment there is more point of arrival in consciousness, in the case of a perception of a point of arrival, or of a point of arrival, or even the vision of a kind of number of potential point of arrival, well, the present is no longer lived under light. So that's once again, it's something that fits into a dynamic, only a movement. That's what I can say quickly. And it's very good. It's not beautiful. Yes, it's good because it's an experience about experience and specific areas. So we said supramentalism allows us to have new classes, but these new classes, that's it. It's an explanation that's precisely what we do after death. Finally, sorry, after life. Well, we could do this and that, but okay. But then precisely as I continue on this, it's It's a dynamic. Okay, but what you have is now about death. Where do you get it? You have you have experienced it yourself, or that's it? That's readings. That's it. That's happening in two stages, right? So the first stage is it's learning.
At first, so listening to conferences, reading, and also being in a personal spiritual dynamic outside of that, right? I didn't just do that, and when secondly it becomes from the moment it was seen, because it's not integrated right away. It lands there and then it digests, it integrates, it takes years, and after a while the perception of life generally, that's clear what I'm saying, but it's that now you have an intimate conviction, if I may summarize it. It's more than there that really joins the order of conviction. For me, conviction would relate that to what happened before. For example, when I was a believer, or faith. I had faith, I had convictions, I had principles, I had no Roman principles. We are more in the order of everything that is known, but that is known individually. It's not known for everyone, and that's very good like that. And it's not known in the same way at the same time for everyone. And then it's very different from what by the supramental. It's very different for me than talking about spirituality or spirituality before. That's why the word supramental during the brand has a point in time, and from that point in time things happen. There you go. Well, besides, when Robin talks about supramentalism, he gives a date. He says the other on the planet. Damn, that's a point. That's it. That's my perception, and that's it. That's very good. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. And so there we had, there's no one there. It's Aline, well known, who contacts you. And, well, Jean-Luc was there before. So Jean-Luc, you take the floor, or we pass the floor to you. Just before, was very speechless. A little thing that I have.
I looked, is that the submental, I have the feeling, a feeling essentially of permanent change. That is to say, we start in principle, a principle of discovery and everything. And tomorrow it's not the same. It's not the same thing. And then the day after tomorrow, it's still not the same time. And then the day after tomorrow, it's still not the same thing. It constantly remains. We can always have the same orientation, but we never have the same thing to see. We were talking about glasses earlier. I would say that these are glasses that allow you to see 360 degrees and that constantly look for color, constantly deprive yourself. And we are constantly in each time. But in November, it's quite difficult to explain when he has to be in it, to feel that he can start to move, to constantly move, realize that, well, the birds, but they don't know that they were on a highway, because we are not the ones driving, and it comes out whenever it wants. It goes whenever it wants. That's what I can say for now. For me, it's the feeling I assume that I have constantly in life. That is to say that we have a life of conduct, like a kind of program, and we do our job,
And then we realize that we have ideas about something else. We see events, different news, we see different events. And it's not only inside that changes, it's also the outside that changes. It's our approaches, our friendships, our knowledge, our I don't know, our parents, because once they've left, they've left. But it's we often feel where we are, and then we realize that we're all alone, because this loneliness in if we look closely, we're not all alone. When we have someone with us, when someone doesn't move, when someone is motionless, and in fact, the mobility means that if we don't want to be alone, the person we're with must be mobile friendly. If they're mobile like us, we're not alone. But otherwise, we're completely isolated, because we realize that people stay attached to their memory, to their circumstances, to their to their to a kind of circular evolution. If you want to visualize that, and that doesn't happen. Seems
Concept has the same ideas, and Jan is still sailing alone with all the information coming and going that constantly. That's what you can say about it for now.
Well, maybe we'll pass the floor to Aline, who connected. Go to Aline. Can I speak? By putting your microphone? Yes.
Listen to him, the active. Well, for me, the mental storm first. Sometimes when I saw Bernard de Montreal's short video, he said that mental superstarting is the contact with your thought manager. That everyone has a thought manager who, even if we're not aware of it, even if we don't hear it, he's there too, and then informs us. And he informs us in different ways, and depending on whether we leave spirituality more and more, it's like we're directed towards information that is more different. And for me, it was information with Bernard de Montreal, Jean-Luc, with Doc too. And then what it does, what I understand from it in the first place was information, but it tracked me that I watch a lot when I have emotions, to be able to see where it comes from, not long ago in the emotion, to not feed the astral, and to manage to be more and more in the mind, but in a mind that emerges from beliefs, that emerges from the influences of society, our family, all that. It brings us back to being more observant of who we are. And then our real reality there, that's what guides me to focus on being more and more true with myself. And then there I realize in everyday life what it does is that I try to follow the information that comes to me spontaneously in my head there. And that's what seems smart to do, that I did it. Then I realized that it gives something more. And then we see what it's doing right now. That's it. It helps me refocus. And then but what I observe is that a lot of desires, to be desires that I had before doing things, such and such a thing. Now I'm in a phase where I'm not tempted anymore. I'm not tempted anymore. It's like I see the astral side of these activities there without really seeing it, but feeling it doesn't tempt me anymore. So it's other things. Then there, it's like I listen to Bernard de Montreal a lot too. Then when he talks about it, he says it's a phase where we the ego cleanses itself from astrophysicists, and then that it leads us back to being more in the present moment, and then that there it is perhaps in circumstances like that that we will have more contact with our adjuster, and that we will be able to start communicating more. It's certain that the businessman shows up when you're ready, when it's time to, and then I tell myself, well, it's for sure that we always hope to have clearer, more direct contact, but we have one like that. Even if we don't hear it, it must not be dance, it must not be, that's what I tell myself. And then that's it, that I'm pretty much there. And then I see that there are a lot of people now on the internet who talk about supramental. It gives other points of view. Then I arrived, she told me, listen, is it that humanity is going on different timelines at the same time? Because if there are some who will go in a direction with concepts that seem to be living to go in a direction, then from another, when Thomas was talking about the sixth race, all that, then there are others who will say, no, we are in a confinement, and then we must get out of the matrix to death, and then it will be in having a lot of identities that we will be able to do it. So I asked myself if there wouldn't be several timelines at the same time, that at the supramental level, I didn't go around quite a bit of what I see in.
Okay, well, thank you to Lilel for your testimony. Before work, we have 20 minutes left.
Then with 2 or 3 things that have been said, in fact, with a huge side, I have the camera important. Well, it doesn't matter. I press it, I overlap, I put it back. We'll see. Just since you were in the definition of the supramental, I saw in fact others. So the addition of what was said is other glasses in the movement. We see with other glasses while being in the movement and passing from shape to shape. I saw that it was like a kind of summary for the definition that you were looking for at the beginning, Jean-Claude. And then there it's very good. Thank you, Richard. And I would say in relation to what was said, that in fact we have new glasses and we lean on glasses every day. And there you go, you're this little one. That's why I'm in the movement, in the sense that it changes and that we go from form to form, so that changes all the time. That's it. Okay. Thank you, Richard. And his mon, you didn't hear that. Yes, precisely to continue the path. It's the story of the glasses, the dynamic glasses that change, let's say, with each realization. And for a very long time, I wondered why it's so difficult to be able to report an awareness. And there, I just realized by discussing with you that ultimately an awareness is like a sequence, an extremely fast, very short mini sequence that comes to us precisely mediocrity. It is so fast, so dizzying that it escapes to make way for another dizzying, which means that we have a lot of trouble explaining this to others. In general, in any case, for me, I don't remember in detail when I have an awareness. I'm going to have the subject of it, but there is already something else that has come to get on top, which means that it's many permanent certainties. I'm not going to say every day. I would say rather every hour. Maybe sometimes it can happen on days when we are extremely cluttered, let's say, finally cluttered, where we receive a lot. So it's even more than every day. It's that the glasses, they remove, they recover. It's a bit like me. I see it as, you know, the cinema reels, where there are the sequences of every minute or every second of film sequences. That's a bit like it,
it's when we get to the end of the reel, finally, the first little mini image, well, we don't remember it anymore because it was so fast in succession that finally, and I will associate it with awareness. And we in any case, I wanted to be able to hold on to awareness because it's so powerful and so important that I told myself, but I have to magazine that because it has to serve me, I have to be able to use it. And in fact, we realized that taking what we did a year ago, sometimes it can come back, it can get back on the mat, and then it will present itself to us in a different way, as if we saw it on the side of the angle, let's say it straight, whereas at the beginning we had seen it from the left angle, and then finally that's where it tells us, oh yes, that's true, I had already thought about it, but I still see my facets. So in fact, there are facets, I see it as a facet ball. So there you go, it was just to add that, but we are always on the same dynamic, and we could add even without the method since it had been said. So we put something together without the method, and then I would also add without memory. So that's why after that we all had, as Max said, everyone had their own type of evolution since there are no two that actually look like them. But the things that cannot gather but be common to each type of evolution, do not hesitate to correct eventually, but without methods and memory.
Without a method, but it still took people like Aurobindo and Bernard and others, right, to lay the foundations of what it is and give advice to finally have advice that we apply afterwards, at least by digging what exists, what comes to us. And then, indeed, once we have, let's say, followed and advised by Pierre Paul, well, we ourselves become we acquire autonomy and we ourselves become the advisor to our life. And we take charge of it completely autonomously. That's why it's really interesting, because methods are used to this term because you say it looks like that. And so with my side, that's why I was talking about the vocabulary pack. It's actually a vibratory thing that makes that once we are on a certain threshold, there we fall into what Jean-Luc was saying a little bit. We see things changing all the time. So it is implied that the enlargement of the field of consciousness is done. And well, it's true that we heard then, those who read all the others, we talked about Aubrey Aurobindo and all that, or me. Then unlike others, that's all that didn't look like a method for me, but that made me, in any case, it's true that we were answered a lot by many things that we already had, so there was a lot of resonance. So that's why I didn't see it as a method, but a trigger thing. So it's true that in the end it may resemble, we can say a method maybe, but it's true that it's really not the term that I'm going to use. And so all this addition of things led me to expand. So maybe listening is a method, but I didn't say to myself, hey, I'm going to do like so-and-so said. But on the other hand, he brought me that, and it's funny, I've never thought about that. But I don't store it particularly, and like Estonia, we don't remember the stuff, but when it has to come back, it comes back. So it resonates, and that's why I don't see it as a method, but since I was given a pack of stuff, and then in fact you have style, so suddenly I don't stay true to text. Well, I'll stop there, then you see, Richard, what you're saying here, because you're talking about a method, no, it's the same. The word doesn't go through there, I have a hard time with the method and advice, even if at the beginning we're all a little bit looking for methods and advice. That's, I think, inevitable for everyone. But today I use this term much less. I'll rather talk about vibration. That is to say that they brought a vibration beyond. To make these grasses, there was one that led us to experience this vibration. Well, it's certain that yes, we've all been more or less knocked off by what was broadcast in the audience, but it seems to me that what was broadcast beyond the instruction is a vibration. It is this vibration that was captured by certain individuals, and which in turn were able to absorb it, to make it a little bit of what we are saying, that is to say, expressing how we see it, but
It's not advice. It's not advice. It's not methods. Instruction quoi. Instruction what? So there you go.
We talked about it during another discussion with Matt, with the that's how you'll tell me, Matt, this supramental supralization was something like that. And that's what would make me think of dogmatizing the affair, so to speak. And I don't know if you want to, Matt. There was that a little bit. So in fact, without shooting, and we can feel that possibly that's not going well. In fact, it allows us by seeing it to dogmatize so as not to stick to writings, methods, and all that. That way we continue to do with this new Indian life, indeed, resonance, but suddenly we can stay without dogma. So as Jean-Claude said at the beginning, there was religion after spirituality. And then he said, therefore, disease for conscience, but which still has remains of feet sometimes in the glue, which can be spiritualized. But suddenly, that wasn't the opposite of what you were saying, Matt. It wasn't in contradiction with what you were saying. That is to say, that it was a new step. And then I would add that it is less polarized, since suddenly, as we see more things, we see that the polarity has just messed up the signal. So we can continue afterwards with that. I'll stop.
Anyone anymore? But yes, it's not Jean-Luc's anymore. I'm not anymore.
Several things came to me, particularly regarding incessant awareness. It is about deciding to apply awareness in writing, and that will allow one thing. It will allow one to realize that the awareness that one has just had when writing, first of all, it is very difficult to know exactly what the teachers lied. And then what interests you is that if you look at the first awareness you had in 2 years, it will not be obsolete, but it will be more adapted. Your vibration will have changed, and the vibration that will have changed means that, well, your awareness will no longer be able to feed yourself, and all that, as you will surely remember, find it, is that you will forget a lot of things that are not useful, a lot of things that are not necessary. And that's why when I come back to what Jean-Claude said, where there is a little more one thing on the one hand, because if I read 5 or 6 pages, the next day I won't communicate at all, and I find it a miracle to be able to read and to be able to remember it, but it won't be of much use. Why? Because it's a bit like describing to you what the life or what is breathing. As long as you haven't lived and as long as you haven't breathed, you can't just imagine it, but you can't apply it. It has to be experienced. It has to be integrated. And when you integrate, you know what it is. But before that, it's useless. I think it's useless because it's a bit like reading the Bible and knowing what holiness is. It's more or less the same thing. I try to compare for the young people who have lived for religion, but this is pretty much the same thing. It is once we experience it, once we know it, then what concerns graduation, your vibration changes continuously. It changes, it modifies and improves. It something more and more large, more, we say, more interesting for the environment, more interesting and more difficult to how to say to meet our vibration. Often the vibration that you are going to encounter, it will never be enough. It will bring you on one side and you will distribute others to it, but the majority of vibrations will not be able to bring you, only if it leads you to say that. It's a bit like it says, if you wanted to get an idea that would trigger you towards something else, as long as there's no one triggering you on something, you can't move forward. You have the impression that the environment is not sterile, but and 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 when you have no, when I listen to you, that gives me ideas, so that makes me bounce back from the start. I can't say anything, like I was telling you at the beginning. I can't say anything because yesterday everyone said nothing, and as soon as you start talking and there are things that come, bam 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 bam, I feel like I'm like a bubble or a little ball where we're going to bounce back, poof poof poof, and then that's fine, and then there are new things, and then there are things that are interesting to see, and it's a pleasant one that seems good to me to watch. But regarding the information, was good to read the information, to listen to the information, but it's essentially the experience that brings one's own information. The rest, in my opinion, it's useless. Okay. Thanks, Jean-Luc. Me,
There is a new person who connected, Virgil Libria. Is it that Virgil, do you want to intervene or not, Virgil? Because there is no camera, no microphone. But Virgil, once, twice, three times. No. Well, dependently, if you want, is that suddenly your questions? Did you have an answer to everything? Yes, exactly. Yes. We have. It's a good everything. That's how what his life is. It is mostly that the subject of the show. The supramental, what's the point? That is to say, we have experience that different from many. So I think we have left. Is it's present something not rounded for me? What is it for? What's not? Okay, so no, it's a Virgil might participate next time. Okay,
simply thank you. That's my enjoyment. Well, we're gonna stop, and just I don't want to announce the subject of the next live in a week. Let's say that in the supramental we hear the sentence thoughts come from elsewhere. Well, the subject of the next show, the next live, is where our thoughts come from. There you go. So next Sunday, and thank you to everyone for participating, and walk soon. And so next Sunday, goodbye.